Okay, here we go.
All right there.
Hey, everybody, welcome to another segment of the Real Mike Pittman podcast. I'm your host, Mike Pittman, and joining me on the show today is Mr. J. Alexander Martin, a fashion icon, entrepreneur, man about town, and all of the above. Jay, thank you for agreeing to being on the show. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, man. We had a little mixed up about on how we supposed to start this thing off, but we're here, so that's good.
Okay. Well, there are so many different things that you've been involved in, looking at your bio, and maybe I'll just let you tell our listeners about yourself and the fact that you were one of the co-founders of the iconic FUBU brand, and as well as many other things. But can you just maybe share with our listeners just a little bit
Oh
about
my
yourself?
God, how much time do we have?
Oh, as much as you need.
You know what's funny? I, you know, I look back and I make jokes to myself and I said, "Man, you look good on paper." So, I mean, again, of course, I'm one of the co-founders of FUBU. Of course, it's been around since 1992, 30 something years from now. 30 something years prior, I would have known that I would have accomplished all of that I've accomplished. I mean, I know that I was going to be something because again, I'm a man of vision more so than a man of goals. And with that, a lot of things kind of go from there. I'm more of a vertical person. I like to be able to command and control everything I do from every aspect. And I believe in entrepreneurship. So with that being said, FUBU first, of course, what I've known for. Um, from there, I've built a lot of different businesses, a lot of different spin-offs. One of right now that I'm really working on right now is the streaming platform Forest Bias Network. From that, branched off, scaled it to right now. I'm in negotiations with New Jersey for two uh, production studios. Um, One more for editing, and the other more for production, filmmaking. In New Jersey, one is about 311,000 square foot. The other one is about 500,000 square feet. So we're in negotiations now. Hopefully we'll get that done within the next 3 to 6 months. From there on, I've also graduated into music. I signed a deal with BMG for distribution, record label, and publishing. So it's basically a joint venture in which are all the artists that are in my shows. I can give them to record deals. More single deals first, and then if it really works out, then we move on to maybe an album. And then of course they collect all the publishing. I also will hopefully by April we'll have everything going, and I filmed a feature film. I can't really tell you exactly what it is, but it has something to do with somebody they call the boss, and that should be in theaters hopefully by April, and AMC theaters. And then of course for first run AMC theaters, and then other theaters later. Um, and then from there to my streaming platform. Of course, again, as you see, totally vertical. You create the movie, you put it out in the movie theaters. From there, and then you put it on your own platform. So, also, actually today I signed a deal for a coffee, and I signed a deal for a scotch out of Scotland. What else? I, I mean, I can go on and on and on and on.
Boy, yeah, you're a man of many talents,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I can go on and on and on and on and on and on. Like I said, but by the time it's all talking about me, and my accolades. But again, I love to do these interviews. I love to do these podcasts. I love to talk to people, but I love to kind of give wisdom and knowledge, not just kind of talk about all my accolades.
gotcha. Well, having said that, everybody knows about FUBU. I mean, in our community, and can you give us a little history on it? How did you guys start FUBU? I know you and Damon John and there were some other guys that were
Yeah.
also a part of that. How did FUBU start?
Well, if I can get $1 for every time I have to answer that question, I'd be much richer. Uh, but I always make that joke when I say this because, again, I've said this time and time again. So basically, this is how it worked. Damon John, of course, childhood friend, my guy, the Shark Tank. Shout out to Shark Tank and all the stuff that he's done, all these things he's accomplished individually outside of FUBU. But what happened was basically I was a childhood friend of his. I went to in the military. I was in Desert Shield, Desert Storm. Came out of the military with a medical discharge. I got into an accident. I got about $6,000 from that. Damon had previously made a hat, which is like a tie top hat. It's like a tube, and you tie it and you put a thing around. And one of our childhood friends, which is a graphic designer, put a label on it. He had since sold a few, and he had stopped because, again, the fad of a hat. It was a fad. It was around the end of the day, going tomorrow. They stopped. They sold some, and then they just stopped it. They had came up with a name, sitting around the table saying, we need something that's for us, by us. And then, of course, that was too long. Then they said, you know what? Why don't we just call it FUBU? So fast forward to me coming home. I wanted to be in fashion. I was going to FIT and I was working at Macy's at the same time. With that, I came back. I was like, hey, what's up, Damon? Hey, let's hook up. We hooked up. I went to his kitchen. We sat down where we normally sit. And I sort of, when coming home, I saw the hat on the table. And I was like, well, what's this? He's like, oh, it's a hat. I sold a few, whatever. And that was it. I was like, well, I like what's FUBU. What's that? He's like, oh, it means for us, bias. We was kicking it around. I was like, oh, this is great. I said, let me turn this into a clothing line. And he was like, well, turn it to a clothing line. How can you do that? I was like, well, I'm going to school. I'm in retail. Like, I can take this and turn it into something. And he's like, well, I already spent all my money, on fabric and all that. So I don't have any money. How you want to start a company? I said, well, I have $6,000. So I gave him 5,000 and kept 1,000. And rest is history.
Man.
And started designing. I started designing, and then trademarked the company from day one, and off to the races we went.
Man, at what point? I know when you talked about when it started. At what point did you guys really start seeing daylight? That you say, man, this thing is really taking off, man. We own to something.
Well, to me, to be honest, I'm in retail, I'm in fashion, I'm learning it as we go along. So the day you sold your first piece, for me, was the day I knew it was going to launch and go. I mean, just in the name and in the message and what it was, I knew it was going to be phenomenal. That's why I threw all my chips in. Like, remember 1992, $5,000 is a lot of money, to give to someone and say, hey, believe in me. He had to believe in me to be able to say I'm going to do it, and I had to believe in myself enough to give him $5,000. So I knew what was going to happen because I just knew I knew what I could do. I believed in myself that I know I could do it. And but if you kind of ask them and you look at the time period, if we start talking about 1992, it took us about 4 or 5 years really to get about 4 or 5 years to really to get to the notoriety than where we was, because again we had LL Cool J, that was our spokesperson, and he was getting it out there. So the Gap ad, as far as marketing, like stuff like that, just really catapulted us to another stratosphere. So it's almost like a perfect storm. We had the right stuff. And again, our motto is for us, by us, because we're the customer. We knew exactly what we wanted. So it was that easy. And for me, going overseas, being in the military, kind of looking around and being, I call it being nosy, but basically it's just market research to find out what people really like. And me being stuck on a ship with different races and different people and people that wore, cowboy boots versus I'm coming and I'm only wear Timbs, or I wear Adidas, or someone would wear Chucks, from LA, and you would understand the sensibilities of why people wear stuff. So you come back with that knowledge and you put it into your designs, and it was a perfect storm.
Yeah. And you talked about LL Cool J. How much did hip hop influence your brand in terms of really help you get it out there?
Well, hip hop is the brand. I mean, if it wasn't for the culture, I wouldn't be who I am, and we wouldn't be who we are because in retrospect, we grew up on that music. We grew up in that lifestyle. The culture, the music, all that. It's a lifestyle that you lived, and it's true. If you're being true to yourself, you're true to who you are. You're true to the fashion that you wear, and that I guess every culture or every 10 years, every 5 years, or every person, every brand X or Gen X or whatever, everyone has their things that they actually wear and or their individual style. So if you're being true to that, that's what it is, and that goes hand in hand when it comes to entertainment. It goes hand in hand when it comes to sports. It goes hand in hand with everybody's culture. You wear, you are, your identity is what you wear, and I knew how to uh, capture the identity of what everybody wanted.
Looking at the fashion industry now and where we are as opposed to, I guess, 20 years ago, how has technology affected the fashion industry, I guess, more or less in a positive sense?
Well, I don't know about a positive sense. A lot of times, especially with today's social media, today it drives a driving force to, for marketing, it's a driving force for sales. A lot of times too, a lot of companies think you can just, put a picture up on social media if someone has a whole bunch of followers, and you're going to get sales. That's necessarily true. I remember starting day one, and we didn't even have what they call CAD programs right now. That back then, I had to do everything by hand and marker. I had to do my catalogs, and it took me forever because I would have a colorway, and then I had to color in between the lines, to show the buyers what we are going to do that year or that season, I should say. And if I messed up or we had to change the color, I had to go back to the Kinkos and reprint it out again. And then it's funny, sometimes I laugh at myself because I'm like, man, was I absorbing all those markers all those time, all those years? Do I have a impediment in my head? Or was I high a lot of times creating all that stuff? But technology. If you had to kind of, back then you had to make it happen. You had to just get it done. Everything was word of mouth. Everything was, it wasn't easier. It was more, you had to have more drive, I think, back then. But today's technology, it's a push of a button. You can get it to millions, and you can get it out to millions, or have people exposed to you versus you have to go out there and grind and going here. Let me show you. Okay, let me explain to you. Right now, listen, look at technology now. We didn't have this where we can just get on. I'd have to fly there, or I'd have to get there somehow to get into the studio to sit and talk with you. Now I could sit in my office. I could sit in my living room. I could sit outside and still have these conversations. So technology, of course, is always going to advance, and you have to advance with it.
Hmm. Uh, Talking about the HBCUs, historical Black colleges and universities, how important were they in terms of your brand, and how it was able to catapult? Did they actually HBCUs, those schools that are in, that are out there?
Well, that's funny. It's funny you mentioned HBCUs, and that's actually probably one of the first times I ever asked that question. And I could laugh now and say that I you almost thought I went to Howard because I was always in the yard. I didn't go, HU, and so a lot of the again that's almost like going to um, we used to go to a lot of functions where everyone like was called Cancun, and everyone get together and enjoy themselves and have a good time. With college, it's the same thing. It's a melting pot of all different races, well, not really different races because HBU is predominantly Black, of course, Black institution, but you still have Hispanic and things like that, but you would have the culture of hip hop and the culture of the people that you're actually seeing. So you would go there, and it would be people from all over. So Texas, Detroit, Chicago, and you would sit there. And for me, like I said, I called it being nosy. I would just sit there and absorb all the energy of the young youth. And I was young at the same time as well, but absorbing that, trying to figure out what the next thing is. So it was definitely something that I had to have to go through. And we would drive up there and just go sit, sit outside. Of course, talk to the ladies as well. But again, like I said, uh, it's funny too. Also, when I was in the military, I got a medical discharge. I was stationed in Maryland, at Bethesda, Maryland, in Bethesda. So I would always congregate and talk with a lot of the students, and actually a couple of my girlfriends back and forth were students that went there. So it was something that I was learning, they were learning. But again, they were going to school, to be doctors and lawyers and all that stuff, and I was, just got in the military, just getting out. So it helped me, it guided me. It kind of made me understand, from coming from overseas and dealing with different people and beginning that military life. It helped me transition back to being an actual civilian.
Now, talking about the clothing industry now, and from when you were, I guess, first got into it, how difficult is the clothing industry in order to make a go at it, to be able to do some of the things that you guys did? I mean, right now you got the sneaker market, people buying, sneakers, Jordans, Air Force Ones, and those type of things, but different caps and things. But how difficult is it to break into this market to have a brand that's successful?
Well, today, like I said, with social media and technology, as you asked the question earlier, it's actually a lot easier. It's a ton. I mean, because now, at the push of a button, you can have a website, and at the push of
Mm,
a button, you can have, pictures of what you actually want to make. As far as CADs are concerned, and you could put it up on a website, and you don't even have to have inventory anymore, because you could do it by order, or you could order 100 of them and say limited time and put up a sale and sell out that fast. We didn't have that when we first started. I
mm,
mean, always we laugh at sometimes now when people talk about technology. Just to go back to that question somewhat, is that if we had social media back then, when we were that big, I mean, we were like the Beatles, in the
mm,
2000s. Like we were like a rap group in the 2000s, and then in the 1990s and stuff like that. So, it's much easier today. I mean, much easier. Anybody could have a t-shirt line instantly. You can go to Alibaba, you can go on Amazon, you can go online, buy yourself some t-shirts, cut, and all of a sudden you got a line, or all of a sudden you got an online store.
mm, mm. Yeah, interesting. I know years ago, on the athlete foot shoe store. I mean, we used to go out to the magic show out in Vegas, and
Right.
find the different vendors and whatnot. But talking about the products, did you guys get a lot of your products made overseas? That you make them here? Because I know the deals are basically being able to go
Oh
overseas.
yes, yes, yes. Oh man, did we? I mean, I was overseas so much. I was on my what third passport at one time at my height, going back and forth, predominantly Asia, that we manufactured from. At one time, it was Korea, China, India. So we were. That's where because again, we were doing so much volume and selling to so many stores that our average order of a T-shirt, like had to order 20,000 of a color. We were selling like that. I mean, again, we was at a height, we were making 350 million a year. So that's a lot of goods to be selling. So
Mm-hmm.
today, if you put it in perspective, if you look at, brands now, you don't have to have those minimums. You can just go online and say, I only want to order 10, I only want a 20, maybe a 30 or 50. You couldn't do that back then.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, things have definitely changed. Um, Looking at the fast forward a little bit, I know you've written several books. I know at least one book that I know, but tell us a little bit about some of the writings that you've done.
Okay, so my first book was called, it was about basically money and your relationship with money. And I say, when I say your relationship with money, is that in this book, I'm what they call the spender. So I had to understand who I was, or who I am, what actually was, because I was past tense, because I'm not in a spender as like I used to be anymore. But I had to understand that, because again, as soon as I got money, I spent it.
Mm,
So it's a book called Money Made Me Crazy, and it actually did. It made me crazy. I spent and spent, but then at and then until you turn around, you look back. But why do I have 4 cars? And I could come out my driveway and I have 4 cars and they all don't work, and I got to take a cab to work. You start thinking about why am I doing this and what am I doing it for. So that was the first book. Um, and the second book was, okay, I got all this money. How did I make it? How did I build the empire? So basically, it's explaining how I built FUBU and what I've done and how it is or what it is to be an entrepreneur, and what attributes and what you have to be an entrepreneur, and because it's not for the faint of heart. And then lastly, which is my latest book, that just came out in November of 2023. It's basically, okay, you made all this money, you built a company, but it's called forced bias. But what is forced bias? So it basically explains, it gives you a detailed, like, um, chronological list of people that used forced bias. So this is not something that's new. It's what Black people, it's what African Americans, multicultural, and all of us need to do to succeed by working with each other, helping each other. Because again, I can't win or I can't succeed unless you have money to be able to buy my product. So we all have to work together with each other. It's almost like, it's concepts of, great African American leaders that have, like I said, used the forced bias mantra, and it teaches you that's our secret. The secret of us, the secret to our success is forced bias.
Hmm. Um, Looking at the clothing line,
I'm sorry, I didn't mention the name. The book of that title is The Strength of Forced Bias.
the strength of force. Okay, and they can get those on Amazon
Oh,
or
yes, you can get those on Amazon.
okay. Uh, what
So
is something?
wait, one more. In hindsight, it's really a trilogy. Yeah, in
Yeah.
hindsight, I kind of did it backwards to forwards, I guess. But in hindsight, it's a trilogy. If I think about it now, sometimes you do stuff and you do it, and the spirit, God put the spirit for you to do stuff, and he's like, wow, I just did all that, and I'm like, oh, that's what you wanted me to do, because it's basically, like I said, I'm here. I always have the thinking. I'm of the thinking that, what I'm doing is not necessarily for me. It's not necessarily because I'm trying to make all the money in the world, as much money as I can. It's really to be a beacon of hope for us to come together and work with each other and show, prosperity, and show that there's something that we can do other than play basketball, other than, sports and entertainment, I should say, instead of just say playing basketball, but
Hmm.
or rap and sing.
Hmm. Looking at the trends now in terms of clothing, and some things are hot, some things aren't not, and then you have stuff that comes back. They talk about like throwback jerseys.
Mm-hmm.
People were wearing, a lot of Negro League jerseys that were wearing, number 42, Jackie Robinson's number.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel FUBU fits in with that in terms of throwback, in terms of the brand being, I guess, a household name, is which it is now, but in terms of another generation of
Mm-hmm.
people wearing them, was kind of in my generation when
Mm-hmm.
FUBU came out. I'm older now, but they have a lot of younger generation now that are 18, 19-year olds. How do you is there a way to expose the brand back to those individuals to be able to I guess maybe say rebrand it, if that's the proper term to use?
Mm-hmm. Well, for us, that's the power of having a brand, because it'll transcend through time. That's the power of us, because we actually have a brand. I think a lot of times that people have misconceptions of what what a brand is. They think, if you just started yesterday, and you have a shirt or a couple of shirts, you can't really necessarily call that a brand. A brand is going to take test of time, and it takes time to make a brand. If we have tons and tons of license deals, I mean, we have scrubs, for God's sakes, as a license. Scrubs, like hospital scrubs, is FUBU
Hmm.
hospital scrubs. So you can't have that unless you really have a brand. So, a brand will never actually die, because it's always going to, change. It's going to change hands. It's always going to go in a cycle up and down. But again, it'll always be here. Um, I think we've done a good job of that. And again, the fad part of it can come where, you know what, I want to wear the 90s stuff and then I want to wear the 2000 stuff. But again, we've been around so long that, like I said, the legacy of us will always outlast fashion, because we've done stuff, and we have suits. So I mean, we have such an array of items that somehow you're always going to need to get it. You're always going to need to get it, and we're overseas, so we're so embedded in the culture that we can't go away.
Yeah. Now,
Well, I say it's a funny story. If the alien came down and said, "Yo, we need to find one of something," and okay, we have to need one clothing line that could speak to everyone, because our demographic was 5 to 55. So if it keeps going on, I keep making 5 to 55, 5 to 55, 5 to 55. It's I have your kids, I have your kids' kids, I have your cousins, I have your aunts, I have your grandmother, I have everybody.
Yeah, interesting. As you move along right now in terms of your career and some of the other things that you're involved in, what's to this point has been the most interesting thing, your most memorable thing that you've done? I know starting FUBU, and maybe it's starting FUBU, but you've done so many different things. What stands out the most, I guess?
Oh man, I really can't say. Everything to me is phenomenal. We have this quote that we use every time we see somebody, not quote, but saying, we say every time we see somebody wear our clothes, we say one time. So anytime I see somebody wear it, it's almost like the first time I actually sold it. So I don't take it lightly that I see somebody wearing it. I'm happy. I enjoy every day of it. I've been enjoying every day of it since we started. And again, I really can't 100% pinpoint anything, because again, for me, it's everything's a vision. So I'm just constantly moving and constantly moving the needle, that I can't stop to smell the roses. So unfortunately, I really can't give you one thing that said, "Oh, I did it," and "No, this is great," because it's all great.
Yeah. I want to delve a little bit more into maybe your personal life. You married? You have children? Or are they involved in the business? Or
No, no, actually, no kids, no married. I date here and there, because I'm a avid entrepreneur, so I'm always working, and that's probably who I'm dating, my business. And you know, I think for me, I put this, and I'm very candid. I put this thing. I don't want to say. I put this obstacle in front of myself, to where I say, look, when I finally get to this, then I'll settle down. When I finally get to this, I'll settle down, and I'll keep moving the goalposts.
interesting.
So no, no kids, none of that.
Okay.
And
Now,
again, I have this ritual. I say no kids out of wedlock. So
okay.
yeah, I just always have this thing. I'm very spiritual and very moral. My moral compass is pretty high. Let's just say that.
Okay, great. That's good to hear. Um, and so your company is still based out of, is it New Jersey or New York?
New York, yes, still based out of New York. My media company is based out of LA.
Okay. Now going back to that, the media company you're talking about, the production. So are you guys going to be producing like movies or
Yes,
sitcoms?
yes, yes. We're going to produce series, reality shows, and I've already produced it. But the first movie, like I said, could have come out under the flag of the Four Inspired Studios. Should be out in April.
Hmm. Now, what would you tell a young person that wants to get into the fashion industry? What advice would you give them from a young person that just wants to get in the fashion industry right now?
uh, that's another question. If I get a dollar, if I had a dollar every time somebody asks me that question, I'd be richer. Um, the first thing I tell someone when they come up to me and say, "Oh, I want to get into the business," I say, "Well, okay, start."
Hmm. Start with a hat, start with a t-shirt, or
Start.
whatever it is. Just
Just
get
start, because basically, by you coming up to me and asking me this question, you want me to validate you. No, that's not how it works. You just started and you say, "Hey, how you doing? I like your work. I'm doing it too." Great. Good luck. Good luck. Because you're looking for validation. You're not gonna make it if you have to ask me what advice I need, because you need your own drive. Don't use me for your drive. You have to use yourself.
Interesting. Yeah. And I know when you got started this, there were some other partners. Is everybody still together now, or is it?
Yeah, yes. We all. I mean, we all in the business. We all do our individual things. We all have individual license kind of deals within the brand, except Damon. Damon, more so, of course, he's with Shark Tank, and so he just does that and a lot of speaking stuff like that. But Keith is in charge of FUBU Radio. He's created that for himself, that lane for himself. Carl has created FUBU Hotels for himself, and me, I'm just strictly media. Media, television, television distribution, television filming, things like that.
Yeah. Out of all the different people that you've met throughout your lifetime or since you've been in business, who's been the most interesting person that you've gained the most from? And in my follow-up, did you have a mentor, or do you have a mentor?
No, I don't believe in mentors. As far as the question is, who's the most maybe influential person I ever met? I went to Africa years back, of course, way far years back. Because when I tell you who I met and had us come to his house and sit down with his family, we went to Africa. We was opening stores in Africa. This very important person in Africa reached out to our team and said, "I really want to meet this person and thank them for coming here and thank them for building stores and bringing the diaspora back and forth. But as far as the diaspora is concerned, I should say, and which was Nelson Mandela. Which for this day, I mean, I can meet a president, I can meet all that, but that right there was just different because again, going to Africa, and I felt centered, I felt different, I felt like home. And it just was weird because I asked a lot of people that go to Africa, I said, did you feel anything different? And some people don't, but some people do. I know I did. And as far as me with no mentors, I look at mentors in a weird way because again, there's two ways I can say it. I can say it almost like if you're driving down, right? If you're driving, right, and you're coming up on traffic, that's a mentor. Because I have to drive up to the mentor and say, hey, listen, what should I do next? He has to tell me what I have to do next, and then I go back and I do it. Now I have another problem. I got to go back to the mentor, right? So I'm basically, what am I doing? But if I have an obstacle, I'm going to bulldoze through it and do it my own way because there's no one can tell me what I'm doing because I'm doing it my way. So there's no one in front of me. So for me, there's a mentor in front of me. For me, instead of me coming up and going into traffic, I'm going to go veer off and go off the expressway and go on the side road and pass everybody because I don't have my direction, or no one has done what I'm doing because I'm the only one that's doing it. So I'm an independent thinker to where I'm like, for instance, with fashion and FUBU, no one has done what we've done. So there was nobody in front of us to give us the blueprint. So that's how I work. I just work where I just feel that I don't need someone to tell me what I'm doing or not doing or what I should do because I only know what I could do. I only know what I'm doing. And you're not going to create what I'm creating. Or you may turn around and I may come to you if you are a mentor and then say and talk me out of what I'm supposed to be doing. So I don't even look at that. I don't need that. I just need I have people that I'm like I say, other people in my price in my I don't want to say price bracket. That's not the right way to say it. Other people that I congregate with that are and like-minded, but other than that, it's not as a mentor. It's just we just sitting there talking about business. And it always worked for me. And again, I don't take what I say with a grain of salt and sprinkle into your life. I'm not saying that some people do need a mentor because they need guidance all the time. I just not want to need it or want it. I'm my own mentor.
I know it seems like that you do a lot of work, you work a lot, but what do you do in your downtime? What are some of the hobbies that you have? That do you golf? Do you play basketball, work out, or or would you consider yourself to just be a workaholic?
No, well, what do I do in my downtime at work? Or I research about work.
Okay, okay.
Okay,
Uh,
you know what? I'm cheating. I'm lying. No, I'm not lying because if in theory, no, I'm not lying. I my pastime is cigars. So I'll go and I'll sit and I'll decompress and I'll smoke a cigar at one of my a lounge in New York that I'm a member of. But then I'm also talking, I'm networking, so I'm still working.
hmm. To use that term, networking, how important is that? One in the fashion industry or just in business in general, I guess, in terms of networking. It's been said that your network determines your net worth. Is there any truth in that statement?
I think there's somewhat truth, but I think that it's been said so many times that people don't really understand the definition of that, what that really meant, what that really means, I should say. I think that's one of the statements that I use. That's one of the that goes to one of the statements that I say all the time. People looking at the shiny object, but they don't know how that shit got shiny.
Hmm.
So, if I give you the answer to the test, you can't prove your work,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So it goes back to that statement is yes, part of it can be your network is your net worth. Because if someone happens to have, you know, access to $1 million and you're sitting with someone that has access to $1 million, another person that access to $1 million, then of course, if you speak to that person, then you have a great idea. You may have access to that $1 million. Okay, yes. In that definition, yes. But then if you only live by that, what are you doing? All right. Now, that same person that does not have access to $1 million but has knowledge, right? For instance, I'll give you a scenario. I'm speaking to a company consulting. They don't understand why blue is selling. They won't understand. Okay, uh, going even back to our marketing when LL Cool J did the Gap ad and said forest bias on the low. They didn't understand what that even meant. Now I'll go back forward back again and say talk about why I know that blue was going to work. Well, Nipsey Hussle died, so everyone was celebrating and everybody came together and Nipsey Blue, Crip Blue, obviously is going to sell. Now, why do I know that? I know that because I'm in the culture. I know what's going on. But the as average person that looks to analytics and well, the analytics are telling me this and this, if you can't understand it, you can look at a bunch of numbers all you want, but if you don't understand what's behind those numbers, you're never gonna win.
Hmm. Interesting. A couple more questions here, Jay, and I would say I appreciate you taking the time
Oh, no
to
problem.
meet with me. When I think about Black community, I think about us Black people here in America and the dollars that we have that go through our hands. You know, we talk about, you know, we are over $1 trillion economy, but yet, you know, we're last in everything. You know, we spend over 90% of our dollars outside our communities.
Right.
And I believe, you know, we have some similar interests. I think that's how we first met. Matter of fact,
Mhm.
the Black
Yeah.
Chamber of Commerce conference.
Yeah.
And I
And I
know
have
that.
to. I'm still on the board
Okay,
of the
great,
National Black
great,
Chamber of Commerce.
yeah. How important is it to I want to say educate our people on the importance of the black dollar and in terms of turning it over to create jobs in our community, create wealth? Well, what's your feeling on that?
No, I think it's imperative. I mean, that should be job one. Again, that goes back to my book, the strength of forest bias. If you know, um, there's a another thing that I say, and I can't take the credit for it. And I paraphrase it sometimes. So I change it around a little bit just so I can say it and not so I don't have to, you know, I can't. I won't just say who told me, but I change because I changed it around a little bit. But basically, he was saying, you know, talking about the fact that we don't necessarily have an identity. So if being that we don't have identity, if you're, and this is how it goes, because I changed it, like I said, I changed it in the whole metaphor and made it my own way. If I'm driving down a block, right, and I look to the right, I see a Spanish sign. I look to the left, I see a Spanish sign. That's a Spanish neighborhood. If I'm going down the block some more, I see a Asian sign. I see another Asian sign. That's a Asian neighborhood. It could be Korean and it could be Japanese or whatever. I'm going down a block, some more, and I see a store. I see a building. I see another building. I see a house. I see another house. What neighborhood is that? Nobody knows. But I see black people. Oh, it's a black neighborhood. Again, we don't have an identity. So when it comes to us, as why are we such a consumers? Because that's our identity. Our identity is what we wear. If you walk around and you go to different places or different boroughs, or even if you go to different states, of course, you can tell where that person's from, especially if they're black, from what they're wearing. So again, that becomes an identity. So that's what we're all going to spend on. We're going to spend. And the companies like us, we try to teach people, or how to teach people to be, for us buyers, to be vertical, to be able to have more than an identity of just clothing, but whole identity in spirit, and know who we are and start working with each other. So then that way we can keep it within ourselves. Because again, if you look at, the question was asked one time to me, what was it better that Dr. Martin Luther King progressed, or would it be better if Malcolm X progressed? So if you switch places and you had Malcolm X in front, would that have been better, or is it better that Dr. Martin Luther King was in front? Now, Dr. Martin Luther King was preaching we should all come together and let's be friends and let's get together. So then what did that do? Not discrediting or not criticizing at all, but just actually asking the question, what did that do? That made us come together and such. And then what happens a lot of times is you pick that one person out of the black community and then you give them riches, and then they keep going and don't come back with the riches to help. They just keep going. Now, if Malcolm X was going in, Malcolm X was like, forget about that. Let's just keep our own. Now, think about it. If the Tulsa Black Wall Street happened, and then somebody forget that, we're going right back there and we're going to rebuild again, and we're going to rebuild again, and we're going to rebuild again. And that was a pillar and went from every state, and we just kept doing that. Where would we be? We wouldn't be a nation. We wouldn't be that. Well, first of all, we're not a nation. There is part of a nation of Islam. But if they were the predominant, then what would we be? It'd be a whole nother life. So that question is loaded with different ways to look at it. I just feel that we have to figure out how we start believing in our own products and our own things, and then or not just believing, but supporting monetarily, however. And then second to that is, if we keep destroying each other, then how can we build? Because every time you feel that someone's and then lastly, we won't even make it if we keep glorifying the wrong things. Yesterday, the president was on doing his State of Union address. But if you look at social media, you wouldn't even know it. Last month was Black History Month. You wouldn't even know that it came and went, because we don't care about our support, because we're so busy trying to, not we, but a lot of us are so busy trying to get ahead at any way they can by themselves, instead of getting ahead with each other. Because you need each other. We all need each other. And we all need to get back to believing in us and our own identity. We can't keep being, looked at as the 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 what's the word I'm looking for? The inferior race when we were started off as a dominant race. I'll stop there.
Yeah. I know Dr. Claude Anderson, I've had several conversations with him. He actually came and spoke for me here in Springfield, Illinois, where I'm at. And I know one of the things that he talks about, and when we had conversations, is that how integration basically knocked the socks off of Black people. He said in terms of splintering us and splintering our dollars. What's your thoughts on that?
I listen. I can't say it better than that. I can't say better than that. And again, this is not a thing where I'm saying now every other race could do that without a problem, and no one has a problem except us. As soon as you say something like that, oh, that's anti this or that's wrong, or that. But every other race can say it without a problem and do it without a problem. It's the weirdest thing. And we were brought here as slaves. How does that work?
Yeah, I know that. Even with the Black Chamber of Commerce, years ago when I was president of the Black Chamber of Commerce, and there were comments, and why do you need the Black Chamber? But there's an Asian chamber, there's Hispanic chamber, all these other chambers that did not get questioned as to why they were starting, but it was something sinister.
Right.
Whenever Black people started doing it and tried to be able to work together and do things like that. And
again, no one's saying, white against Black or white this, that. I'm saying it's okay for you to even, for instance, let's look at Florida, to where, they don't want to, no Black history. But I bet you're not going to say there was no Holocaust. You're not touching that.
Yeah. Interesting.
Slavery was a choice. Well, some of our leaders, that's what I'm trying to say. You can't, that shouldn't be a leader. They should, let me tell you what I feel. And this is how I look at it. I feel that, and just what I do, that's why I build the businesses that I do. And I put people in situations where they can make money as well. That's all I try to do. Right. And that blueprint, I throw out there in hopes that another person of means can actually hear this and start implementing it. For instance, I want to mention names. Let's just say somebody is a boxer and they made billions of dollars. Let's say somebody is an athlete and they made millions and millions of dollars. Okay, create a franchise, right? I don't know. Just make this a scenario. I'm just making up. So you create a franchise. So then I'd rather go to that person's McDowell's, then go to McDonald's. So now you've made more millionaires. Now, what happens is we look to not me per se, but the masses look to that person as a leader because of what they've done in sports. And then, so now you have so many people that follow you. So now we put you on the pedestal and say, okay, well, what are your thoughts on this? And what are your thoughts on that? When all you really, really want to do is play ball. So now you're pushed and forced into having a political stand, and the powers that be need votes. So they ask you because they need the votes of you, because you're going to co-sign them, and then it turns around. Now you take your constituents are following this person and what they want. You got something out of it, you think, because now you feel that I'm in this world, this new world, and I'm going to progress even more instead of being a pillar in our society and letting them. Because again, if you look at politically, and again, I hate to be so political, but the power that we have politically is huge, but we don't use it. And again, I'm not looking as a Democrat, I'm looking as a Republican. I'm just looking as a us.
Talking about Black leadership, if you had to pick out 3 Black leaders in the country right now, who would you choose that you consider a true Black leaders in the Black community?
I, you don't never get to see them because they're the average person every day that is fighting the fight without the fanfare. Because as soon as you get on to where looks at me and get that microphone, it changes you. Because, and then again, that leader will be coerced. No disrespect, it is what it is. Coerced into doing what someone's telling him to do, because again, in turn, he needs the votes or he needs the money. So his interest gets to start switching. And it's no longer the passion that he felt from day one that what he really wants to do, because he's not doing what's right. He's doing what's he's led to do. Because you're not at the top of the power. You're not at the top to where you can actually really make a difference. You're just a dangling figurehead.
So in essence, you think that they're bought off? Maybe maybe that's not the proper word to use.
I don't want to never. Again, that's why I said I was picking my words very carefully. Because I'm not saying anyone's bought off. I'm just saying your interests change. You think things change, because the reality is this. And again, it's not there's anything wrong with it, because I'm not saying it's just bad or good. It's just what it is. I'm just speaking it out for what it is. I'm not telling you I have a problem with anything. It is life. But what I'm saying is, if as you grow, things change. So if you, as right now, right? If you had a smaller apartment, let's just say, right, or smaller space, you can't fit a grand piano. But now that I have a bigger space, I can get a grand piano. You may have started with an accordion, but then you built as you grow. You're exposed to different things, and you think bigger. It's like a president. I'd like to do this. I'd like to do that. I'd like to do this. I like no new taxes, this. But when you get there, reality is what? I can't do none of that. So what can I do? I'm going to try. But you can't do that when you get into it, but you have to get you have to get the votes, and you have to give great ideas and new ideas. But again, the reality comes back to the folks where you can't do certain things. It may be wishful thinking, but it's not that you're not trying to do it, but it's just reality. You have a Congress, you have a Senate, you got laws, you got things you can't, like, you got people to deal with, you got, a polarizing, Congress, if anything, it's, to the point where, like, I always laugh when I say, somebody actually said it, and I always repeat it. He said to me, there's certain people that will, let's say it's a family of 5, and you have like a kid that's just some people, a kid that is dying, all right, or the mother is dying or something, and they have they don't have any health care. But because it's Obamacare, I don't want no Obamacare. Okay, well, your kid's gonna die. Well, I don't want it. Why you don't want it? Who told you don't want it? Well, I just don't want it. Okay, now your kid's gonna die. Does that make any freaking sense? That's just how life is today. But again, it is what it is. I'm just speaking it. I don't have a dog in this fight, because I'm going to win with me working my way and doing what I got to do, and regardless of who's in office. Because again, I look at it as forest bias. I look at it as us, and I'm going to keep presenting myself and putting myself out there as a beacon for other people to look at and do the things the right way.
I've really enjoyed this interview, Jay. It's been great. I've learned a lot more about you than I didn't know already. And they definitely would probably like to bring you back on the show at some point again to talk about once
Anytime.
the studio gets open and to talk about that. And it's just been really great. Is anything else you want to tell our listeners? Anything else you want to say?
Oh, I could just say, if, hey, listen, you want to, follow me, the things that I'm doing as far as progress, you can go to my website, jalexandermartin.com, the letter J, alexandermartin.com. From there, you can get on my social medias. I'm on everything. The Instagrams, Facebooks, LinkedIn. And I always like to mention LinkedIn because a lot of people, they're into more social things, but I think that LinkedIn gets a slower rap, but I try to push more people on LinkedIn. Not that I have a deal with LinkedIn and like that, but I think that that's how we as a group, as a people, should start moving more towards, because that's the business, and that's networking, and that's that, instead of Instagram, where it's nothing but gossip and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, when you talk about gossip, it seems to be like that's the juicy thing now.
Right.
Everybody
Yeah.
wants to hear the gossip and
Right.
all the stuff about.
Right. Because we can exchange conversation, and we can make some really great points to help a lot of people, and inspire. And but if such and such, I don't know, I'm just making up anything, such and such, talked, or did whatever, or anything, spilt the tea or whatever, or broke up, that's going to be more news than what really needs to be news.
Hmm. Yeah. Do you think that's just a part of our culture, or a part of the culture of the country, more or less?
Well, no, it's the culture of the culture. It's the company. It's the culture of the U.S. at this point. I think that with, and again, I'm not criticizing anything. I'm just making a point. I think with you know morally, I think that it's been desecrated. To be honest, when you take a person of that standard as a president, and you, as far as Trump is concerned, and you allow a lot of things that you normally wouldn't allow to be morally right, to be right, um, and that it just it just just destroys the fabric of the nation. And again, uh, there's going to be, there's always going to be a bad element and a good element, regardless. I understand that, but it's never been such a imbalance, because I think the bad element is taking over, and I think the lack of when it comes to fact finding is gone. I mean, I remember, years ago, and a journalist would have to go to school to be a journalist. Now everybody's a journalist.
Hmm.
So you're not going to fact check. You're just going to say what you want to say, just because you want the likes and you want to be popular. And the more and more you want to be popular, the more and more you're going to do for that to you're going to do anything for that to happen. And so brings down morality. If someone watches this, and they make a comment, watch this one day, check it. The person that will make the worst comment, that won't make any sense, right? They'll have 2 followers.
Hmm.
They're only doing it because they're trying to, poke the bear, or they just have an opinion for no. Well, you're entitled to your own opinion, right? But you're not entitled to your own fact. I'll
Hmm.
leave it there.
Yeah.
I
Jay,
feel like
yeah.
I'm preaching.
Hey man, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. I know we had some, technical difficulties getting started, but it's been great. I look forward to, steady communication with you, following you, and looking and seeing some of the things that you're involved in. And can't wait to get for the studio to open up.
You and me both.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine. She's a filmmaker. I think you might have talked to her before. She's done 3 or 4 movies. Just did another one called Lipstick that's coming out sometime, and I think sometime this year. I know the girl that played Bernie Mac's daughter was one of the stars in the
If you
movie.
can reconnect me, reconnect me.
Yeah, her name is Kimberly Connor, and I'll do that. I've been in several of her movies, and had small parts in them with Omar Gooding and Dre Kelly and some other ones. So, and had small parts, but she's an up and coming filmmaker and is really out there doing it. So, remember that name, and I'll reconnect you guys as well too.
Great.
Okay, Jay, man, appreciate you, man, and we'll be talking.
Yes, thanks for having me.
All right, take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, just wait just a few minutes, and it takes the time for it to